Thank you for tuning in to the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. Whether you're listening during your commute, while working out, or just relaxing at home, we appreciate you. Every download, every listen, and every subscription means a lot. Up next, the 12 Kyle podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. And thank you for subscribing to the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I am your boy, 12 Kyle. Man, check this out. On this episode, I want to talk about TV. More specifically, I want to ask a question of you, the listeners, and those who are watching on YouTube. Thank you for watching. One simple question. And it was a meme that I saw the other day, and I had to bring it to the podcast. And the question is, if you could get one more season of any TV show, more specifically your favorite TV show, what would it be? That one was a tough one for me because the reality is that I like several TV shows, and I've talked about a few of them on here. And it's always interesting with TV because it's not until later on you find out how or why or what happened behind the scenes to make the show go away, right? A lot of times TV shows can be hits and stick around maybe a little bit too long. And other times they can be hits and end prematurely or still have some tread left on the tire. And so what I wanted to talk about was just that question. If you could get one more season of any TV show, which would it be? And I'm going to give you a few of my favorites. But even before I do that, I will definitely have to acknowledge the fact that there are some shows that we watched, probably some of our favorite shows that really hung on too long. And I'll give you a couple. The first that comes to mind is The Cosby Show. I absolutely love The Cosby Show. The Cosby Show, for me was must-see TV. It was everything. I mean, The Cosby Show featured, obviously Bill Cosby, and Felicia Rashad, Claire Hanks, or Claire Huxtable, if you will. Claire Huxtable was, at least for me, the quintessential wife. Like, every guy that I knew wanted to have a wife like Claire Huxtable. And that was your goal, to marry a Claire Huxtable. And The Cosby Show was on TV from 1984 to 1992. That was a total of 8 seasons. And I'll be honest, The Cosby Show hung on way too long. Season 7, you started to see some chinks in the armor. I mean, like, it wasn't the Cosby Show, at least for me, it wasn't the Cosby Show that I had grown to love. By the time season 8 rolled around, man, they were scraping the bowl. Like, they were really scraping the bowl. I did not enjoy season 8 at all. In fact, when I go back and watch old episodes from season 8, like if an episode from season 8 comes on, and I can recognize them immediately because the characters changed, the whole vibe changed. It was just something totally different from, and granted, this is a family of the Huxtables. I don't think I have to explain to you who the Huxtables are, but this is a family that has grown. And so the kids have grown. And so little Rudy is not little Rudy anymore. And you got Olivia and Martin and Denise, and it was a lot. But if we're being honest, I just think like they probably could have stopped after season 6. But at the time, the Cosby Show was the number 1 ranked show on TV, even at after the 6th season, it was still ranked number 1. By the time season 7 rolled around, they never got ranked as high as, I think, 5. And by the time season 8 rolled around, Their highest ranking was like 18, which is still great. But when you go from being number 1 to number 18, it's just not there. But yeah, the Cosby Show, if you go back and look at Cousin Pam and all of that whole run, Dabness, all of these other ancillary characters that came alongside the Huxtable clan, to me it just wasn't good. And it did not, I'm not going to say it tarnished Cosby Show's image, because I think, at least for me, like I can go through seasons 1 through 6 and I'm locked in. Like it's not a problem. I can pick an episode and I'd be cool with it. But no, I'm not advocating for an additional season of the Cosby Show, because like I said, by season 8, boy, they were scraping the bowl for real. Like I just remember that last episode when they walked off into the sunset and walked off the set, and I was just like, and don't get me wrong, even when it happened, I was, you were naturally disappointed to see such a great show end its run, but they had a run, right? Like it was time for the run to end. And I think it's particularly for TV, it's better to get out before you start falling off, because once you fall off, you fall off. Another favorite show of mine that I thought hung around way too long. I won't say way too long, a season too long, and that was the hit TV show Martin, which I will do an episode about Martin, because Martin's one of my favorite TV shows from the 90s, one of my favorite TV shows, period. But I think Martin, obviously starring Martin Lawrence, great show, very innovative, very funny. Had some classic episodes, some great characters, from Shanae to Roscoe to Dragonfly Jones to Jerome. I mean, the player from the Himalayas. Listen, man, there's not much that you can say bad about Martin the show, at least to me. I thought the show was incredible. But that last season, oh my God, it was bad. And for context, and those of you who know, Martin and his co-star Tisha Campbell, who played Gina on the show, they were in battle with some type of accusation of harassment. I don't know if it was sexual harassment or something like that, but they were at war with each other, and network convinced them to come along and play along and work together. But interestingly enough is that entire season, Martin and Gina, Martin and Tisha Campbell do not appear on screen at the same time the entire season. It was very weird, and it was very noticeable for those of us who were huge fans. And it was almost like, and I mean, the way that they wrote the script, I guess, was pretty cool, because, Martin got a job. I mean, I think didn't Gina get a job in LA from Detroit? Martin stayed in Detroit, something like that. I don't know. That season was a blur for me, I'll be honest. But it wasn't good. It wasn't good at all. And it wasn't as funny. And it was just like, to me, it just looked like they just went through the motions. So yeah, that was disappointing. I wasn't as disappointed with Cosby. I was really disappointed with Martin that last season. I just remember going back, and even now, if reruns come on TV and I happen to be in front of a TV, I won't watch though. Particularly for that last season, I won't watch them. I just won't, because that season was just that bad. Now there were some episodes where people, still tell me that, oh man, that episode right there was funny. No, it wasn't. Like the what is that? That was the episode with the it was the little fur monkey, or what? Not a monkey. It was like a something where they go to a cabin or something like that. And Martin gets into it, and he's trying to fight off this animal. I can't even remember the name of the animal, but some people thought that episode was not funny to me at all. I mean, Martin's mannerisms make things funny, but I sat there the whole time like, nah, dog, this ain't it. And I'm a huge Martin fan. but yeah, Martin, the TV show stayed around probably one season too long. And it's hard to go out on top when you got things rolling for you, excuse me. But yeah, it just that wasn't it. I did not enjoy that season at all. Um, and again, it's not easy to walk away from because obviously there's money involved, there's contracts involved. But the thing about TV is, you have to strike when the iron's hot, and then sometimes you got to walk away when the iron's hot because you can preserve the legacy of the show, and you can leave people wondering as to what could have been, and leave them hungry, and it doesn't leave a bad taste in their mouth. Now, there was talk. I don't know how serious the talk was, but there was talk about maybe doing a reboot, which I'm totally not in favor of. And don't get me wrong, Martin Lawrence and Tisha Campbell are cool. It's some tabloid stuff as to what happened. You got Google, you can Google it. I don't remember what happened. But they're cool now. They're like a family. Unfortunately, Tommy Ford, who played Tommy on the show, passed away a couple of years ago. And I think, like, at least from what I've heard Martin say, that it wouldn't be the same without Tommy. So they probably wouldn't do it again, which was cool for me because I don't know that you can put that toothpaste back in the tube. You can't recreate what Martin was. And Martin was a cultural phenomenon at the time that it was on the air. I just don't think you can I don't think you can duplicate that. And that's tough to do. Even though I think there probably would be a lot of fans that would be for it. I'm not one of them. But I do have a few shows in mind that I'll tell you about that I think would have really been dope, that I would love to see one more season from. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and on the other side of the break, I'll share those stories and those shows with you. Sit tight. We'll be back in just a second. Are you feeling nostalgic for the golden eras of rap and soul music? If so, tune in to the Rap Soul Podcast. We are your weekly journey through the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, spotlighting the music and the hidden gems that shaped the soundtrack of our lives. From the powerful beats to the soulful melodies, we bring you the best of the past with fresh insights and stories. Rediscover the music that defined a generation. Subscribe to the Rap Soul Podcast and enjoy the vibes. And just like that, we are back. Once again, it's your boy 12 Kyle. This is the 12 Kyle Podcast. And we're talking about one more season. If you had a chance to get one more season from one of your favorite shows, which show would you choose? Again, as I mentioned before the break, I was going to give you a couple of the shows that I would have loved to have seen come back for one more season. First up, it should be no surprise to you. You guys know, anybody that knows me knows that I'm a huge advocate for HBCUs. I attended and matriculated from the greatest HBCU, that is South Carolina State University. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you for watching. You see my football helmet here. I play football there, and you see my jerseys framed. Yes, a different world. Young 12 Kyle probably never goes to South Carolina State University had he not seen the hit TV show A Different World. That show aired from 87 to 92. They had 6 seasons. I would have loved to have seen a 7th season. I think because A Different World hit on so many topics in which it did, that was the gift and the curse for the show. And what I mean by that is A Different World dealt with just about any and everything that you could imagine that would happen on a college campus, from dating to interracial dating to sexual assault to drug use, and just seeing how the nature of relationships and friendships and bonds happen, particularly on an HBCU campus. For a kid like me growing up in South Carolina, it gave me the idea and the foresight to see that an HBCU was going to be the best place for me to go to college. It did so many things, and I'm sure there's not a day that can go by that stars like Jasmine Guy and Kadeem Hardison, who were the stars of the show, probably don't get told from someone like, hey, I went to an HBCU because of Hillman College, which was a fictional college where they went to school. And because of your show, I went to an HBCU and became an HBCU alum. And HBCU stands for Historically Black College and Universities. I'm sorry, I want to make sure I get that clear for those who don't know. But yeah, I would have loved to have seen a final season, or at least a seventh season. The thing that I did not know was that, in essence, and this has been documented and talked about in several interviews by the cast, former cast members, season 6, they didn't even know before they started was going to be their last season. The season basically had been the show had basically been canceled before they even began to film season 6. It wasn't public, but the people knew. Apparently, the topic and the subject matter of A Different World, particularly season 6, rubbed a lot of people in the suits in NBC the wrong way. And what I mean by that is, if you compare it to today's terms, some might say the show was too woke. It might have been too black. Season 6 begins with season 5 ended with Dwayne Wayne, one of the main characters, bum rushing Whitley Gilbert's wedding and proposing to her right then and there at the ceremony, taking her away from her fiance on the spot. And so season 6 begins with Whitley and Dwayne's marriage. And the first episode dealt with the 1992 riots after the Rodney King verdict. And if I'm not mistaken, it was a 2-parter. And that's where they started. And like, the suits at NBC did not like that at all. They had already told them that the show was being canceled. And I think, based on just some of the things that I've heard, from former cast members, that the suits at NBC really tried to downplay the show behind closed doors, behind the scenes. And because they knew they were getting rid of it, they tried to sabotage it. But I think it was really the actors and the actresses did a great job in season 6. We saw a lot happen. And ultimately, the season ends with Dwayne and Whitley. They're married. They find out that they're pregnant. And Dwayne came up with a concept, or he and his buddy Ron came up with a concept to pitch to a Japanese company that he had interned for. And they basically, the company accepted it, but the flip was that they wanted them to move to Japan, and they were going to pay him, like, I think it was like $80,000, and they were really carrying on like $80,000 was like a lot of money. Like, it was acting like $80,000 was like $5 million, and so it was really, really funny. But that's how the show ended. And the show ended with them, Whitley and Dwayne, leaving off and leaving Hillman College and leaving their family and their friends behind, and Ron included. But I would have loved to have seen, a season 7 where you get to see Dwayne and Whitley raising this child in a foreign land. What happened to the friends and family that got left behind? I would have loved to have seen that. Maybe Dwayne gets transferred back to America and he's working in New York, and Whitley's in New York, and now they're raising this child. There's a myriad of different ways they could have done it, but I would have loved to have seen that happen. Unfortunately, we never got a season 7 for A Different World. The next show that I'm going to mention, HBO's The Wire. I personally think that The Wire is the best show on TV, period. I can't think of a better show. And I always get it. I don't get into discussions or arguments or whatever with people online about it. Some people will say this show, some people will say that show. To me, it doesn't matter. It's The Wire. I don't think that I've ever seen anything that was that well written and that well depicted on a screen. There was 5 seasons of The Wire. Now, here's the thing. If you're a Wirehead, which is what I call people who watch The Wire, if you're a Wirehead, you really weren't happy with season 5. season 5, and it's, if you throw it out there and say, hey, what's the best season? Nobody's going to say season 5, because season 5 clearly was the worst season. It wasn't, I don't think it was a bad season. It was, but it's not comparable to the other seasons. That being said, there was a lot going on. McNulty was trying to handle things in the best McNulty way that he could. And then you saw how, like, every season dealt with different things. And the last season was about centered around what was going on in the city of Baltimore with their newspaper and how they got information out. And one of the lessons I think that it taught us was, the media can control a lot. And if you can control the media, in a lot of ways, you can control people. And that still reigns true to this day. And this was before the social media era. So I thought it was very good, very well written. It didn't end the way that I think it should have. And that's why I would want to see The Wire come back for another season. It is extremely hard to land the plane when you've been flying on autopilot the whole time. I think seasons 1 through 4, perfect flight. But when it comes time to season 5 and you got to land that plane, you don't want to bounce on the runway. And I think, just as a fan, I think they bounced on the runway. I think the season could have ended better. That, if for no other reason, why I think a season 6 would have been great. But I'm not mad at the idea of just having 5 seasons, because I think we got more than enough great content. I'll be honest. Season 5 saw, one of my favorite characters on The Wire die, and that would be Omar. And not so much as because he died, but it's how he died. I'm not going to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen The Wire. If you haven't seen The Wire, you should check it out. Again, it's the greatest show on TV, period. Didn't Bodie die in season 5? I think Bodie died, and Bodie was my guy. Like, so Bodie's death and Omar's death, Bodie's death hurt. Like, that hurt me. Like, I was almost in tears when Bodie got capped. But yeah, I think The Wire, I think season 6 would have offered a better plane landing, if you will. Which one? What else? I would be remiss if I didn't mention one of my other favorite shows from HBO, HBO's Insecure, starring Issa Rae. I love Insecure. Insecure, I will watch Insecure at any given day, any moment, anytime. The TV subscription that I have has Insecure on a constant loop. So, like, there's an Insecure channel. So, like, you can click it and it'll just pick up whatever, like, it might be season 2, and I'll sit and watch an episode. And so I literally, a lot of times, if there's 7 days in a week, I'll watch at least one episode of Insecure at least one day a week. And I normally watch before I go to bed. I'll turn it on, and there's Nathan, and there's Issa, or there's Lawrence, and there's Issa, or there's Lawrence, and there's Tasha. Shout out to the Lawrence Hive all day. That's my crew. And I'm not going to rehash it, but if you follow me, you know that me and my girl Maya from the We Did This Shit podcast, shout out to Maya. Maya and I did an episode on the ending of Insecure, so I'm not going to rehash that, but I would have loved to have seen a season 6. I think Issa Rae perfectly timed it for 5 seasons. She said what she wanted to say, and I'm just being greedy because I don't know necessarily. And I will say this much: she did a great job at landing the plane. I don't think it bounced off the runway. I think we didn't get the ending that we expected, but we got a great ending, I think. And that's hard to do. That is hard to do with TV. And they were filming during the height of the global COVID pandemic, which is more difficult to do. If you get a chance, watch if you go to the Insecure page on HBO, there is I think about an hour-long program that shows you the last season and how they filmed it and the challenges that they had and the behind-the-scenes interviews and everything. And there was a couple of emotional parts there as well. So it was really, really dope. I would love to have had a season 6. I understand why there wasn't one, but I think if you gave Issa 10 more episodes and gave us fans 10 more episodes, we'd eat it up. Because at this point, Issa and Lawrence are together. They have his son that he had with Condola. I'm not going to mess up her name. Condola. Like I said before, contrary to everybody else, I didn't have a beef with Condola, but Maya hates Condola. And Maya went on about Condola. That was a dope episode. Check that out too after you finish listening to this episode. But yeah, I would definitely take another episode, another season of Insecure. And last but not least, I gotta shout out one of my other favorite shows on TV, and that's FX's Snowfall. Man, Snowfall was so cold. I really could do another season of Snowfall, and here's why. I think, I did an episode about Snowfall. It's called 100% of Snowfall. I think they did it again, a perfect job of landing the plane. I don't necessarily know that we get the ending that we got if there wasn't the season that we had, the final season of Snowfall. And you see Franklin go from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows. And one of the things that really always impressed me about Snowfall was that, like, even as a fan, someone who was watching intently multiple times each week, because like I would watch an episode once it dropped, and I'd go back and watch it before the next episode came out. I think they did a great job of the details, very, very detailed. And I think even as a fan, you're trying to think, okay, what's going to happen next? There was nothing that happened, particularly in that last season, that I thought that was going to happen. Everything that I thought was going to happen didn't happen. And I love that. I love that for that show. Damson Idris was incredible as Franklin Saint. I'm not going to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it. If you haven't seen Snowfall, I think it was 5 seasons. Again, that's 5 seasons might be the sweet spot. It may be the perfect time to, particularly if your show has a meteoric rise, perfect time to get out. 5 seasons. You don't want to drag it on. But there's so many ways that they could write Snowfall, and there's talk. I've seen it. I don't know that it's true. I think that it is true, but I couldn't confirm it if it is true. Is that there's going to be a spinoff from Snowfall where Wanda from Snowfall gets her own show basically, and of course that would bring Leon, I would assume, since she was married to the cat, into the mix as well. So fingers crossed. Hopefully that does happen, or it could just be the internet just talking. Who knows? But in conclusion, I think if you get your favorite show and you can get one more season, I don't know anybody that wouldn't sign up for that. I think we all love TV, particularly those who really, really follow these shows. And one of the great things about even some of the shows that I mentioned was being able to live through the social media era, and we could, and did watch it together, and we commented on just about everything on social media. This when Twitter was really, really popping. I tell people all the time, like, and I've heard somebody say this, I can't remember who said it, so I want to be able to attribute it to someone. But I do remember someone saying that, like, Sunday nights at 10:30 was like the Civil War. It was women versus men. And that was the battle between Lawrence and the Lawrence Hive, and I don't even know if Issa had a hive, but the Lawrence Hive was just there. And you'll never forget that moment where Issa walked into that apartment. She's coming back thinking that Lawrence is going to be there because she cut the trip short with the girls. She's thinking that Lawrence had been together for 5 years. And, she came back and all she saw was that Best Buy t-shirt hanging up in the closet. Hey, and the next scene, Lawrence and Tasha. I rest my case. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for me. I am your boy, 12 Kyle, and this has been another edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't done so already. You can find the podcast wherever you get podcasts, and we're handing out these podcasts for free, so you should subscribe. We're also on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you for watching. We appreciate it. Make sure that you subscribe and then share the show as well. If you're on social media, hit us up at 12 Kyle, at 12 Kyle Podcast. We're on Twitter, X, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, as well as TikTok. If you'd like to contribute to the show financially, throw us a couple of dollars. We'll take it. We're on Cash App, $ TWELVEKYLE. And you can also buy merch. Click the merch link in the description box. You can buy 12 Kyle Podcast t-shirt, hoodies. Excuse me. You can buy t-shirts, hoodies, as well as coffee mugs. We got it for the low, so check us out. And last but not least, we have a new baby. It is called the Rap Soul Podcast. If you're a music lover, you need to check it out. Why should you check it out? I'll tell you why. Because the Rap Soul Podcast is the intersection where we have discussions about music and artists from the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s. Trust me, it is the best music podcast that you've never heard. We drop new episodes on Mondays at midnight. You can find the Rap Soul Podcast wherever you're watching and listening to this podcast. We're also on YouTube as well, so check us out, subscribe, and then more importantly, share it with somebody who is a music fan. I would definitely appreciate it. Again, that's going to do it for me. I am your boy, 12 Kyle, and this has been another edition of the 12 Kyle podcast, talking about giving yourself or giving fans one more season of TV of your favorite TV show. That's what I would suggest. You tell me what you would suggest. That's going to do it for me. I am your boy, 12 Kyle. I'll catch you guys next time. 5 G's. Cheers.
Thanks again for listening to this episode of the 12 Kyle podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure that you hit the subscribe button and share this podcast with a friend who needs the 12 Kyle podcast in their life. Every listen, every download, and every share helps us grow. Thanks for being a part of the 12 Kyle podcast community. We appreciate your support. We will catch you next time. 5,000.